Aficionado Media on all of our networks and channels. Mike Morales here in San Antonio. That young man out there is
Matt Metrison, Rochester, New York.
And Matt and I. It was really interesting. We had for those of you who've probably already seen it, we did a review of the Vida de Louie Tequila. Okay. And we liked it. We did the Blanco, and surprise, surprise, we didn't. That was all that was sent to us. Very nice of them to do that. And out of the blue, both Matt and I get the Reposado and the Añejo. So we're back to do the rest of the line. There you go. Matt, what we're going to do again, we're going to flip this around. We're just going to pour it. And just start tasting it, and we'll tell you what we think, and then we'll give you all the particulars. Okay, so stay with us.
2020. It's a new decade, new rules.
Good, yeah, really. New decade, new rules, same thing, right? It's still tequila. So now, I like that color, man.
That's very like nice color. Yeah, you can.
Yeah, that's a very pretty. And again, we nominated the Blanco for Brand of Promise, and also in packaging. It is a kind of a campy packaging, but it we'll show more of it on screen here a little bit. But right now, I like what I see. It's kind of a light amber.
Yeah, and it's even up against the light here. It looks really nice.
Yeah. Of course, we're filming this during the day, and I've got it's kind of a semi-cloudy day here in San Antonio, so I've got lighting as much as I can, but nice legs and tears.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really reminiscent of what we saw on the Blanco. Nothing off-putting. I really like the color. As a matter of fact, I don't know about you, but I think the glass makes it look a little darker.
Yeah, I could see that.
The glass
on the bottle. Yeah,
the bottle. And it could be because of the label. See how they have a red label? It just kind of gives like red highlights. But when you pour it in I was using my Stasso Jarrito for tequila. It's a bit lighter than what it looks like in the bottle.
Yeah, I agree. And it doesn't seem like the bottle's tinted at all. So I think you're right with the label just kind of popping the red out a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, very pleasant. Wow, that's pretty. Very, very agave forward, very similar to what we had Uncle.
And I'm still getting over. I had a flu a couple weeks ago, Mike. So I'm a little congested, but I'm picking up the notes, but not all the subtleties of it.
Well, as long as you don't get that coronavirus, because you know how you take care of that. You drink Tecate.
I live in the hometown of Constellation Brands that owns Corona, and it's a big local news story about Corona sales down. And
it's crazy how did jeez, only in America. Now I'm getting more fruit now as it opens up a little bit. I'm getting a little bit more fruit down in the center. It's more floral and fruity kind of.
Yeah, together. I can see that. I've got a little bit of the oakiness too.
Yeah, maybe that's what I'm getting too. A little bit of this, just a hint of the spiciness from the barrel. And again, we'll give you all the particulars once we taste it and dissect it here. I even get in the center a little bit of the alcohol. I'm not sure if you're getting.
Yeah, I can get a little bit. Yeah, absolutely. Ready.
It's not off-putting. Let's dive in. Let's see what we got. Oh.
I get a lot of caramel notes up front.
Yeah.
But mixed with some citrusiness.
That's an interesting flavor profile. It comes in sweet, it's sweet, and then it kind of disappears into this kind kind of the dryness on the sides and the back of the palate a little bit, and then it finishes with sweet again. It's weird.
It's like a residual butterscotch almost is kind of the flavor that I'm getting, mixed with a little bit of like ethanol, like a little bit of bitterness from the ethanol that doesn't necessarily go with the butterscotch, and they're both competing at the same time.
Yeah. It's much sweeter on the nose now that it's opening up a little bit more. These things that we just broke the seal on these off camera. So if you've seen my shelf here, every one of our TJs has his own shelf, and they're full, jam packed with agave spirits. So it's not like we have a whole lot of time to actually visit these beforehand. At least not here in HQ.
Yeah, no, same here. We're sipping off the cuff. We're not pre-sipping.
We're not pre-gaming. This is, what's really interesting to me is I'm getting notes almost as if like French oak.
Okay, yeah.
Can you see that? Like but you were talking about butterscotch and kind of a candy, somewhat of a candy flavor profile, but the information that we're getting is completely different. Okay, I guess now we can go into what do you think of the flavor profile? Is this something that
it's very it's not stereotypical of a Reposado. It's not what you would expect, and it's interesting as a progression from the Blanco, because I don't, there's not a lot of overlap in those profiles. I feel like
only in the nose. The right off the bat it was agave forward, but once the wood notes opened up. Okay, I'm sending mixed messages here. Let me do this. What the hell? I'm pouring, for those of you who are listening to us, I'm pouring some in my hand and I'm diffusing it because there's something interesting going on in this Reposado, and it's a flavor and an aroma that I'm not used to getting when the information says one thing and it smells and tastes like something else.
Mm-hmm. And the information that you're referring to is that there was rested in single-use Kentucky bourbon barrels.
Maybe it is wood. It's an unusual. Okay, Kentucky bourbon barrels, of course, by law, they can only be used once. So there's a high secondary market in tequila and probably other spirits, in beer for this matter.
I saw some maple syrup aged in bourbon barrels the other day at the store.
Yeah, I believe it. But bourbon goes in dry and finishes. Actually, bourbon finishes dry. Whiskey goes in dry and finishes sweet. I think that's how it works. They're telling us that it's Kentucky bourbon barrels that they're resting it in, and yet the notes, the nose, and the flavor profile. See if you agree with me, Matt. They're more reminiscent of French oak, where it's sweet on the nose, and you get some chocolate, and you get, Now, again, additives are okay too, folks. Believe it or not, additives are allowed. You get 1%, depending on who's interpreting your gnome, the normas. You get between 1% and 3%. 1% is the going rate. But I'm wondering, probably the best way for me to find out whether they're adding something to it is to just smell this glass the day after, to see if I get barrel notes. Once it's dry, once the glass is dry, sometimes you get the barrel notes the next day. And other times there's something that's still hinting, that's stronger than a barrel note. And that could be added glycerin, which is allowed as
Mhm.
well. I wouldn't say it's a bad flavor profile. It's just not what I'm used to getting out of a Kentucky bourbon barrel.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um,
Uh,
let's tell you a little bit about Vida de Louie Reposado. It's comes out of distillery 1438, which has uh,
many.
many. It's a reputable maquiladora, very similar to La Cofradía, where a lot of the brands that come out of there. It's called Distillería del Valle. Um, and you get now what they're telling us is that they have a chill treatment system. Um, they're going into a lot of detail. It's subjected to a 2 degrees Celsius for 12 hours, then transferred to a cooling tank and brought back to standard temperatures, and it preserves clarity without cloudiness. It passes through oxygenation, which a lot of brands are doing.
Hmm.
I see the oxygenation. Um, the oxygenation, a lot of times we'll see that from tequilas and from a matitan, which tend to be a lot more minerality, Um, and it says the aldehydes removed to protect against after effects such as headaches. Well, that happens naturally
That's
in double
marketing
distillation.
speak. Yeah.
Yeah, but here's the thing: the trademark about this distillery is that it's agave cooked in brick ovens and stainless steel autoclaves for 32 to 36 hours. That's that's generally their process. Okay, they get agave from everywhere, they dump it in, and they shred it and bake it, and and cook it, and they blend it together, and that's what this is, Vida de Louis. Um, other than the marketing, the packaging. Now, Matt, you said something really interesting to me off camera about the packaging. I like it because it's kind of
I
it's kind of gitchy. It's
I do.
gimmicky.
Yeah, and you could easily mistake this for a rum if you're walking down the shelf in a liquor store, especially with the color that it has too. It's not
Yeah.
rum clearly,
Well, no. I,
but the whole pirate theme with
um,
with the sisal and the the stopper and then the design, it's very reminiscent of a party rum. It would be the way I would describe it.
yeah, and of course that's the skull and crossbones. That they have, and they even have a flag in the back. If you're not now, these folks are out of Florida, so uh, this is almost reminiscent of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
True, true, yeah.
So. Um, So for those of you, this would be great for tailgating. What do you think, Matt? Is this still Brand of Promise nominee worthy?
Yeah,
Um,
I think I would nominate it.
can,
It's not it's I like the atypical nature of it, right? It's not what you expect out of a standard mainstream reposado. And it's nice to see some tequilas falling outside that spectrum of what's expected. We see that a lot in mezcal, where the profiles are just can be really all over the page, and when you have a tequila, it's much more narrow of what the expectations are. So I do like that for this in that aspect.
okay. All right. Well, then there it is, ladies and gentlemen. Our take on Vida de Louis. That's the Reposado, but stick with us because we actually have an añejo as well, and
We've
it's an interesting flavor profile. They're doing something probably with an additive, and again, that's okay. It is allowed. It's not off-putting, but it's really interesting if you're looking for a bourbon forward tequila in a repo or even the añejo. This is not it.
No,
It's
it's not
it's
it.
really more reminiscent on the other side. It's
Hmm.
maybe I don't know, man. Maybe they've got a French oak stave or something that they
Yeah,
throw in
right.
there.
And they're selling this on their
Uh,
website for $53.99. Which is a very different price than is on the printed POS we have here. So it looks like they must have made some pricing adjustments in recent times since these sheets were printed. And it's good. I think one of the things we
yeah,
commented on the Blanco is that they weren't charging enough for it. So I think they got their pricing more in line with where it should be in the market.
Yeah, well, right now everybody's going through an agave shortage, and we're going to start seeing higher prices because small brands, startup brands who, 2 years, they probably are anywhere from 2 to 5 years in their process, and when they launched, you're now in the middle of an agave crisis, and sometimes these can be predicted, sometimes they can't be, and I think we're going to start seeing a lot more higher priced tequilas in the reposado and the añejos just to stay relevant and to keep the market, to keep the brand alive until the market stabilizes, and that probably won't happen for another year, maybe 2 years. So
Yeah, we're at all-time highs in the agave prices. We're low 30 pesos per kilo, which is pretty unheard
yeah,
of historically. So
that's crazy. It's never, it hasn't, even in the last crisis, it did not go up that high. So, but hey, congratulations to Vida de Louie. I don't know who Louie is, but he's having a good time
he's
in
having a good
Florida.
life.
He's living the good life. That's our take on Vida de Louie Reposado. I'm Mike Morales here in San Antonio. That gentleman out there is
At Metris in Rochester, New York.
You have been sipping, listening, and watching Sipping Off the Cuff on Tequila Aficionado Media on all of our platforms. If you're watching us on YouTube, hit the red button. Slam on that bell so that way you get notified every time we upload a video. If you're listening to us on Spotify, please follow us all the time because we got some vintage stuff that we're posting up on all of our anchor networks. And if you're watching us on Fire TV, hi. Yes, we are now available. You can surf us from the comfort of your couch. But whatever you do, hey, tomar sabiamente.
Sip wisely.